Hello, everyone. Welcome to Durrett's Take. It's that time where I'm going to go over my NFL draft grades for the NFL draft this past weekend. So let's get started with the AFC teams. Let's get started with the AFC East division specifically. Again, the Buffalo. My grade for them is a B minus. Now they did need a corner, and they got one in the first round, which is good. But the problem is that they didn't get the right corner, in my personal opinion. Because Will Johnson, the Michigan corner who fell in the second round, I thought that was a great chance for them to get that corner specifically, because the corner they got had more of a second round grade. But that's just my opinion there. They did get some defensive linemen, which was good. They did actually get more corners in the later rounds. My only other issue with their draft is that they really needed another weapon for Josh Allen, another solid receiver, and they waited till the seventh receiver to draft a receiver, which means that probably ain't gonna stick. So I thought they could have drafted a wide receiver, not in the first round, but maybe second, third round or something like that. But that's why they get it in the B range. They get a B minus. Next is Miami. They actually have one of the worst grades, and I have them a D. I feel like they desperately needed an offensive tackle, and especially with Toronto Armstead retiring and all that, and they obviously got to protect Tua, who's had multiple concussions, not the most mobile quarterback, and all that. But I was just surprised that they didn't get a tackle. They did get a guard, which was also needed, and that was in the second round. But for some reason, they did not draft an offensive tackle, which I thought was a mistake. And then also, even though they did draft one corner in the fifth round, I thought they should have drafted a corner earlier on. Not that had to be first round, but the second round. I thought they should have got a quarterback early with the whole trying to shop Jalen Ramsey thing and Javon Holland, obviously, going to the Giants. I feel like that was a weird thing there, and especially with the person that they did get the first round, the Michigan defense tackle Ken Grant, and they drafted him at a little bit high because he was kind of like a late first round guy, not a mid first round guy. So that's why I have, and they drafted 3 defense tackles total. So it's like, why draft a defense, so that was just kind of weird. So that's why I have them as a D. By the way, I'm not going to give anyone Fs. That's just too harsh. But D is why I'm giving Miami there. Okay, and then you got New England. I actually have them as an A draft. They got an offensive tackle, which they needed in the first round. They drafted running back Henderson from Ohio State, is really good in the second round. They got a receiver in the third, which they needed to get more weapons. Drafted a center in the fourth round, and then on the later rounds, they, drafted some more defensive pieces, and they got a new kicker even. Now, the only reason why they didn't get a perfect A plus was because even though it was the seventh round, and it was a late seventh round, never draft a long snapper. You can just get that as an undrafted contract. So in my opinion, that was just a wasted draft pick there. And then the other thing is, I thought they could have drafted more help for the interior of the offensive line, because they did get 2 offensive tackles, but I thought they could have got more interior offensive line. So that was my only reason why they didn't get the perfect A plus. But A obviously is still really good. And then for the New York Jets, I had them getting a B plus. A lot of people thought they should have got tight end in the first round, including me. But I understand, as far as the top tackles go, that's enticing to get another tackle there. So that way you got the tackle you drafted last year in the first round, and then the tackle this year. So hopefully at left and right tackle, you're set for the future, assuming both those pan out. And then they did get tight in the second round. And they got a cornerback in the third round, which is good, because you got to place DJ, get some, options there to replace DJ Reed, who left. They did, now the one issue though that I have, or I guess 2 issues, the reason why they're not in the A category is because they did draft one receiver, which was needed to get more receiver help besides Garrett Wilson. But the problem is that the receiver they drafted in the 4th round was way overly drafted. Georgia receiver Aaron Smith. I didn't like that receiver, pick at all. There's other better receivers on the table at that time. And then also they waited to the later rounds to kind of focus on linebacker, and so I feel like they could have done that a little bit earlier. But other than that, great draft. Baltimore, same as usual. They just get an A. They got the best safety in the draft. first round. And then there's an edge rusher who was a first round prospect because of off the field stuff. He fell the second round, and they got him there. Then they got, and because they have so many picks, they got a new kicker just in case of, because Tucker, besides the off the field stuff, did show a little bit of decline last year, so they got ahead of that. And they, drafted other needs like tackle, linebacker, all that. Now, my one thing though is that I feel like they should have drafted a receiver earlier than they did in the 6th round. And the 6th round receiver they did draft is very inconsistent. So that was my only knock on the draft there. But otherwise, good draft for the Ravens. And then for Cincinnati, I have them getting a B here. They got a nose tackle in the 1st round, which they desperately needed. You got to get the defensive line that had one of the worst defenses last year. And they got a linebacker in the 2nd round, and another linebacker in the 4th round. And then also they did get to draft 2 offensive guards to help with that O-line. That's still an issue. And then they got a decent running back, Tosh Brooks from Texas Tech. Now, because you drafted him in the 6th round, you lost out on the chances on the good running back, which I feel like they should have drafted running back a little bit earlier. And then the only other issue I had is they drafted no players in the secondary whatsoever, which I feel like that was a mistake. But then their biggest mistake and why they don't get an A is with the whole Hendrickson, wanting to trade, move on, not wanting to pay him all that. You should have drafted an edge rusher. Like, that was just weird on why you did not do that. Then for Cleveland, they get an A-. It was perfect for them to trade down for 2 to 5 to get an extra 1st-round pick for next year. Now, obviously, because you did that means you have to give up on Travis Hunter, which is not ideal because they could have really used Travis Hunter. But if quarterback doesn't go well this year, then they could be in the top position to draft a quarterback next year with 2 first-round picks. I like their picks. I like Mason Graham as a 1st-round pick. Their usually linebacker they drafted in the 2nd round. He was a little bit hot, overly drafted. They could wait a little bit later for that. They got the other Ohio State running backs good. They got the tight end from Bowling Green who's very underrated, who's good. They got the running back from Tennessee in the 4th round who's good. So my only reason why they don't get the perfect A+, besides basically missing on Travis Hunter with the trade down, is that if the draft Dylan Gabriel before Shadur, and then you still have Kenny Pickett and Joe Flacco to have a 4-way quarterback competition there. That just kind of seems a little funky there. But otherwise, decent draft. Which you can't say a lot about the Cleveland, and them drafting skills, but that was actually pretty decent. Pittsburgh, I'm giving them a B-. Now, I personally thought they should have drafted Shadur, a good quarterback, even if they got a guarantee from Aaron Rodgers or they're going to get a trade from Kirk Cousins or something like that, I definitely understand that, hey, maybe they're looking at a quarterback for next year, in 2026, so be it. But I just thought it was weird that they waited to the 6th round to get a quarterback. That was just weird. Now, as far as the picks that they did get, I like the Oregon defensive tackle, I like the Iowa running back, I like the Iowa defensive tackle, I like the edge rusher from Ohio State that they got in the 4th round. So the picks were good. It's just that whole not drafting the quarterback early like they should was the whole reason why they're not in the A category. Next, you got Houston. I'm giving them a B+. They did draft 2 receivers in the 2nd and 3rd rounds, and they did get a good offensive tackle in the 2nd round, which was a big need for them. They got a backup running back in the 4th round, which is good because you need some help after Joe Mixon. Now, the reason why they didn't get a perfect grade was because even though they traded back from the 1st round to the 2nd round, allowed the Giants to move up. Since the Rams got a 1st-round pick and the Browns also got a 1st-round pick, I thought Houston should have tried to get a 1st-round pick for the Giants doing that, and they didn't get one. And also they drafted cornerback Graham Mertz from Wisconsin in the 6th round. I just thought that was a wasteful pick. Mertz ain't going to do anything. If you're going to do backup quarterbacks, do a Quinn Ewers or something like that. If you're going to do that route, Graham Mertz, I was like, what the? That was just a dumb pick. Next, you got Indianapolis. They get a B-. They get the tight end that they need, and Tyler Warren from Penn State in the 1st round. They do get an edge rusher, which they needed. They did get a cornerback in the 3rd round, which they needed. But the problem is that they did not draft any linebackers whatsoever, and that was a need for them. And then also with a couple of offensive linemen that departed in free agency, I thought they should have really focused on that, especially offensive guard, which they didn't draft offensive guard. They just drafted one offensive tackle, and that was until the 4th round. So I thought that was weird there. And then for Jacksonville, I give them a C minus. The only reason why they get a passing grade here is because, you do get Travis Hunter. It's pretty good. And they did focus on a lot of defensive players, but as far as just their picks, the people that they got in general, there's not a lot, besides Travis Hunter, there's not a lot of people like, oh, that's a solid pick, or oh, that inspires me. Like, if I'm a Jacksonville fan, like, there just wasn't any of that. Tennessee, they get a B minus, and you get the best quarterback in the draft. And then you draft some edge rush, you draft the edge rusher, which you needed. You did draft 2 wide receivers, which you needed, although both of them were 4th round. So there's an argument you should have drafted wide receiver earlier, but that's here and there. And then they did get a safety early, which was good. But once again, they needed a linebacker help as well, and they didn't draft a linebacker at all. So I thought that was a little bit weird. Now for Denver, they usually do well, in drafts and all that, but this was a D plus in my opinion. It's like Barron, the cornerback for Texas, yes, you need a cornerback opposite Surtain, like that's good. He's a good player and all that. Again, I know the Will Johnson knee injury kind of scared people off, but I thought the Michigan cornerback was the better one there. And then for the 2nd round, you get a running back, which you needed, but the problem is you get a running back who did not have a 2nd round grade. He was more like a 4th round running back. No, the guy's good. I've seen him play. He's good, but it's just like that was kind of weird. It's like he could have, drafted like the Tennessee running back, for example, who's rated higher or something like that. I thought that was, pretty weird, especially passing on a Moriah Hampton, North Carolina running back that you could have gotten in the 1st round. Then you did get wide receiver in the 3rd round, which you needed help. So that wide receiver, that was good. But again, the problem is you got a wide receiver that did not have a high round grade like that. It was a wide receiver. It's like, no one's ever heard of. Like, that just didn't make any sense. Then you drafted 2 edge rushers, which I feel like that's not your need. The need on your defense is the interior defense to stop the run. Because against Buffalo in the playoffs, you could not stop the run whatsoever. You already have the pass rushers. So that was weird. And then for your 7th round pick, you just wasted it on a tight end that's only played football for 1 year in college because he was a basketball player. And then you got a punter in 6th round. So I could have given an F if I was wanting to, but the reason why I didn't give a complete F is because at least you drafted positions of need in the first couple rounds. But that was just a weird draft for Denver. Next, you got Kansas City. I give them a B. You got Josh Simmons in the 1st round, which he would have been a higher pick if he had a season injury. By all accounts, he's a really good tackle, and that's what you desperately need. So that's obviously a good pick there. They did get a wide receiver, but it wasn't until the 4th round, although, maybe it's a wide receiver that works out. I've seen him play. He's decent. We'll see. That you did get a defensive tackle to help pair up, get some more depth there for Chris Jones. But the problem is it was a defensive tackle that did not have a 2nd round grade. So I thought that was pretty weird. You did get a corner in the 3rd round, which was good. And you did get a running back in the 7th round, which you needed, but I felt like you should have drafted a running back earlier in the draft because Kareem Hunt and Pacheco, who's had a drop-off last year, albeit some injuries were involved, but had a drop-off. It's like, I wouldn't have waited till the 7th round to draft a running back there. That's just me. So that's why I get a B. LA Chargers, I'm giving them an A, classic Harbaugh, They get Hampton the 1st round, so they get a Hampton-Najee Harris duo, and I wouldn't be surprised if Hampton, not at the beginning of the season, but like towards the end of the season, actually outplays Harris and gets more of the reps there. And then you get Trey Harris in the 2nd round. That's a good wide receiver from Ole Miss. Then you get a defensive tackle in the 3rd round, which you needed. Then you get a pass rusher in the 4th round, who's actually, I'm surprised he was a 4th round pick. I thought you should have gone higher, so you get a steal there. You do get another wide receiver in the 5th round, just to get more depth there. And then you do get some safety help, which I feel like you needed in the later rounds. So my only issue with the Chargers in this draft is that they waited until the 5th round to get a tight end, in my opinion. That should have been on the higher priority list. And in my opinion, that's the only reason why they get A+. That's just being a little nitpicky at this point. Again, it was a very good draft for the Chargers. And then last but not least, to wrap up the AFC is Las Vegas. I have them getting a B+. I love the Ashton Jeanty pick, running back from Boise State. They got 2 wide receivers, one from TCU and Beck, who I like. I've seen him play a lot. He's good. And then and then wide receiver from Tennessee. They did get a cornerback in the early rounds, which is good. Now the issue with why the Raiders didn't get in the A category was because of their later round picks. It just really confused me. Getting a wide receiver from Montana State after you already drafted 2 wide receivers above that doesn't make any sense in the 6th round. That was wasteful. Drafting a North Dakota State quarterback as your backup quarterback, that doesn't make any sense when there are better backup quarterbacks on the table there. Like, I didn't even have this guy being drafted at all. Like, that was weird. So they could have done that part later of the draft better. But other than that, it was pretty good. So stay tuned for my draft grades for the NFC teams, and thank you very much, and you all have a wonderful day.